This is the hip pad I'll be fusing or attaching to my lining. I have a very detailed tutorial on how to cut and sew hip and butt pad already in my channel. If you do not know how to do this, please go into my channel and search how to cut and stitch hip and butt pad. So this hip pad is half-inch foam that I used to create this hip and butt pad. You can see how it looks like right here. It's really lightweight. After the whole process, when you take it up, it's really lightweight. It's not heavy that it will be dragging your dress down. No, it's very light. So in my previous tutorial, I mentioned that you can decide to do 1 inch foam for your hip and butt pad. You can also do 2 inches foam for your hip and butt pad, but this is just half-inch foam, and that is what I'm using for this dress. So what I'm going to do next here is to sew together the front and the back of this lining, that is the side seams. I'm going to sew together the side seam. So I'll just place it like so. I mean, on the side seam, this is the center back, so this is not how I'm going to sew it. I'll take the sides of this lining and place it on each other, which is the right sides facing each other, and shape to my desired or the measurement I cut out for my new hip size. Hello guys, I'm here again and this is Valmich Fits. This is like a continuation video of my last video posted on how to cut a mermaid skirt. So this is the video of how to attach hip and butt pad to your mermaid skirt and how to cover up your foam for your hip and butt pad effectively without it showing on the other side of your dress. So this is my lining. I went ahead to fuse interface on my lining. I fused wadding for the front and the back part of my lining. In case you have not seen the first part of this tutorial, please go into my channel and search for how to cut a mermaid skirt. It's all there. So what I did for this is to cut a lining which measures from the waist to the knee line. So you can see that I fused interface on it and left about half-inch on the hemline for this skirt to turn with the other lining that I will be cutting. So this is the front part. I'm going to show you what I did for the back part. I did exactly the same thing for the back. Also fused with interface and left half-inch on the hemline that I will be turning also with the other lining I am going to cut out. So basically I'm going to have two linings for this skirt. If you checked, I cut out a doll face satin for the skirt inner, and this lining is what I'll be attaching my hip parts to. So the reason I fused this interface to this lining is to give it some stability and firmness, and to also help cover up the hip and butt pad lines from showing on the other side of my dress. So this is the second lining I'm going to use to cover up my hip pad. This other lining is what I'll be sewing my hip pads directly to. I cut it the same way I cut the first lining, the same way, but just trimmed off about half-inch from the hemline, so that after turning the hemline, this part of it will not be coming out from the other side of this skirt. You can also fuse paper stay to this lining, that is the very lightweight interface to this lining, to also give it some stability, but I didn't do it for this. It didn't really matter much for me, so that's why I went ahead to use it like this. This is the hip pad I'll be fusing or attaching to my lining. I have a very detailed tutorial on how to cut and sew hip and butt pad already in my channel. If you do not know how to do this, please go into my channel and search how to cut and stitch hip and butt pad. So this hip pad is half-inch foam that I used to create this hip and butt pad. You can see how it looks like right here. It's really lightweight. After the whole process, when you take it up, it's really lightweight. It's not heavy that it will be dragging your dress down. No, it's very light. So in my previous tutorial, I mentioned that you can decide to do 1 inch foam for your hip and butt pad. You can also do 2 inches foam for your hip and butt pad, but this is just half-inch foam, and that is what I'm using for this dress. So what I'm going to do next here is to sew together the front and the back of this lining, that is the side seams. I'm going to sew together the side seam. So I'll just place it like so. I mean on the side seam, this is the center back, so this is not how I'm going to sew it. I'll take the sides of this lining and place it on each other, which is the right sides facing each other, and shape to my desired or the measurement I cut out for my new hip size. You see, one thing you need to know about these both linings is that this very one I cut with the measurement of my new hip size, and the other lining I showed you I cut to my actual body measurement. So this one is going to be shaped with the measurement of my new hip size, and the other one is going to be shaped with the measurement of my actual body size. So this lining is what I'll be fusing my hip and butt part to, and I cut it with the actual measurement of my body size, which is the actual hip measurement of my body size, and that is what I'm going to use to shape this lining. To make you understand better, measurement needed for this very lining is your original waist measurement, your original hip measurement, and your original knee measurement. That is your actual round waist measurement, your actual round hip measurement, and your actual round knee measurement. So this lining is just short with about half inch on the hemline that I would use to turn the other lining with interface. Meanwhile, for this one with interface, measurements needed are the actual round waist measurement, the new hip measurement, that is the new round hip measurement, and then the actual round knee measurement, just like we did for the first lining. So after sewing the side seam together, the next thing to do is to open this up and press with your pressing iron. So the seam line that you have sewn, you just have to open it up like this, and then put a tailor's ham underneath it so that it can open up properly, and then press with your pressing iron or with your steam iron so you don't get this burnt. Even with my steam iron, I still like to sprinkle water on my seam lines and then press, because I feel like it helps it to lay flat or open up properly. So after doing that, you can also decide to press out this part, that is the seam lines, after opening up where you have sewn. So you can open it up like this and press. And another thing I would like you to do is, when you turn it to the right side like this, then put your tailor's ham in the wrong side underneath where you have sewn, that is underneath your seam line, and then press on the right side. So guys, when you are done with this lining that is padded, you take the other lining that you'll be attaching your hip pad to, and do just the same thing you have done for this very lining that is padded. So I'll bring it over here for you guys to understand what I'm talking about. So here it is, to make you understand what I was talking about, is doing the same thing you did for the padded lining, is to open up the seam line. For this one, place your tailor's ham underneath like this, and then press open the seam line, turn it to the right side, do the same thing, open up the seam line like this, and also press open the seam line. This is to help this part to lay flat, and it will help you when you are attaching your hip pad to the lining. So as we move forward, you understand and see exactly what I'm talking about. So this is my hip pad, the first one I will be showing you right here. So in attaching your hip pad to your lining, your hip pad will be going in the wrong side of this lining, placed like this. So please, you need to take note of where the butt pad is going to and where the front pad is going to. And please do not make the mistake of turning your hip pad upside down. That is where it's supposed to be on the waistline. You then switch it to face downwards. It's not going to work like that. That is automatically you are switching the butt pad to the front side. So this is how I'm going to place my hip pad on my lining. So from the waistline, I'll come down by 1.5 inches. Take note, from the waistline, you come down by 1.5 inches. And when you place your hip pad on your lining, please open up the seam lines properly. So I'll use my tape to show you guys. Here I'm going to come down by 1.5 inches. or 1.5 inches. So 1 inch is to create a space from your waistline to your hip pad, and the half inch there is the seam allowance to join your skirt to the top side of your dress. So after stitching, you're going to have just 1 inch space between the waistline and the hip pad. So when you are sewing your hip pad to your lining, on this line that I joined the both pads together, that is the front pad and the back pad or the butt pad, I'm going to be stitching directly on that line to my lining. So where I have my seam line on my lining, I'll stitch the line sewn together on my butt pad on my seam line on the lining. I hope I'm making sense here. Like, I hope you guys understand what I am trying to explain here. So basically what I'm saying is that the seam line on the butt pad and the seam line on the lining should align. And when you are done with sewing the seam lines together, the next thing to do is to sew round this hip pad on your lining. That is to hold the hip pad to your lining so that it doesn't move about when it's in your skirt. So automatically what you guys are seeing here is that we are making another skirt inside the main skirt, and I hope you guys are following up on this stitching. Okay, so now I have sewn my hip pad or my hip and butt pad to my lining, just like I explained earlier. I also said you can fuse a very lightweight interface on this lining, like a paper stay on your lining. So see what I did? You see I have 1.5 inches space from the waistline to the hip pad. So the half inch is for joining this skirt to my top. But if you're making just a skirt without attaching to your top, then the half inch will be for joining to your waistband. So I'm going to measure what I have here. So from my waistline to the hemline of this lining, I have about 20 inches. And then from the waistline to the end of this hip pad, I have 16.5 inches. So after stitching the hemline of this lining and also the waistline of this lining to my top, I will end up at 19 inches, which is the actual length of my waist to my knee line. So I'll flip this over to the right side for you guys to see how it looks like. And this is what I have after stitching the hip pad to the lining. Now I'll bring in the padded lining with interface to show you guys how I am going to fix the lining with hip pads to the lining with interface. So I've gone ahead to press open my seam lines. You can see that right here. So I pressed the inside, which is the wrong side, and I also did the same thing for the right side. You can see I'm just going to open this up properly before we move over to the next step. All right, I am done with opening the side seam up properly, and this is what I have after pressing my lining or my skirt, my inner skirt, with my pressing iron. Now what I'm going to do next here is to take the lining with the hip pads and place it right sides facing each other on the lining with interface. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to place the both of them right sides facing each other and then stitch the hem line. This is the first step to covering up this hip and butt pad. I'm going to first stitch the hem line, making sure the side seams are lined, because that is to show you that you shaped the both linings with the right measurement. So you can see what I have here. The lining that has the hip and butt pad and the lining that is interfaced are on the same line on the side seam. So I'm going to stitch straight down to the other side of my lining. You can also see that the zipper allowance side matches with each other. After that, I'll flip this over and then stitch the zipper allowance area with wrong sides facing each other. I'll show you guys what I have done next. So this is what I have done after stitching the hemline, and then I flipped over and stitched the zipper allowance with the wrong sides facing each other. So you can see what I have on the hemline. This will help my lining not to be dragging down from the other side. So see the zipper allowance sides that I said you have to stitch with the wrong sides facing each other. automatically making this entire skirt the lining to my main skirt. So this is what I have not pressed this yet with my pressing iron. I'll take this to my pressing table to do, but I'm going to show you guys what I am doing next. So you see how it looks like now. It's looking puffy because of the hip and butt pad that is inside of this skirt. So when you do yours, it should look like this. So you can see that the butt pad did not get to the zipper area, which will be interfering with your zipper when you fix in your zipper. So you see for the waistline, I'm going to also match this together. That is the both linings. I'm going to match them together to hold that part in one place. Now that I've made this into one skirt, which is now my lining to my lace fabric, I'll bring my lace fabric over to show you guys what I'm going to do next. For the lace fabric, I made sure to press open my seam lines. This is very important for you to do. Please press open the seam lines of your main fabric so that by the time you attach the linings with hip pad, it's going to sit in well in your main fabric, especially on the hip side. So my lace skirt was shaped with the original round waist measurement, the new round hips measurement, and the original round knee measurement. So shaping the hip side of my main skirt like that is to be able to accommodate the hip pad in my lining. Please note that if you don't shape the main skirt with your new hips measurement and you go ahead to attach your lining in your skirt, is going to be very tight, especially on the hip side. Your lining is possibly going to squeeze on the hip side in your skirt and it's not going to come out really nice. So what I'm going to do next is to open up this zipper allowance to where I have the knee line stop on my lining and then use it to turn the sides of the lace fabric. But before I fix my lining to my main skirt, I would first install my zipper. After installing my zipper, I'll then use my lining to cover up the wrong sides of my zipper allowance. So guys, I hope you are understanding every step of this my explanations, but if you do not, please, I'll be in my comment section expecting your questions if you have any. So this is just to show you guys how the hip pads looks like on the back side of this lining, and I'm really liking the outcome of this very technique. It's looking really beautiful even before installing in my lace fabric. So now I have installed my zipper in my skirt. You can see what I have right here. I've installed the zipper, and what I'm going to do is to open up the zipper before I install my lining or fix my lining to the zipper allowance. So I'll just turn this over to the wrong side to show you guys how I am going to fix my lining to this zipper allowance. So now I'll bring the lining with the hip pads over, and this is how I'm going to be fixing it. This side that has the stitches on it is going to be facing the wrong side of the lace skirt. So please do not mind how I'm going to place this right now. Just follow the instructions as I speak. So you see how I opened up the zipper on the lace skirt. Then you place the lining with the side that has the stitches on the lining directly facing the zipper on the lace skirt. So I said you shouldn't mind how I'm placing this right now because I didn't notice this until after I was done recording. So you're going to place it like I instructed and sew on the zipper. So you're going to sew it like you are sewing your zipper on your lace skirt, and you're going to sew this down to the knee line. So you're going to sew your lining in down to the knee line like you can see me do right here. So when you get to the knee line, after that, the next thing you want to do is to sew the top of the skirt. If you are sewing a whole dress and not a skirt, this is the time to close this part of your dress, especially for an inbuilt corset top, like you will be attaching an inbuilt top to your skirt. For me, the extent I usually cover this up to is where my dart is supposed to stop on my skirt, and for this, the dart is supposed to stop about 4 inches.
So I'm going to measure 4 inches from the zipper. You can see the way I'm placing my tape right now. I'm going to measure 4 inches and mark that spot. So that is where I'm going to cover this part up to. I hope you understand exactly what I'm explaining here. I'm going to stitch this part where the 4 inches stops. After stitching, I'll do notch and do the other side same way. After that, I am going to turn in the rough sides of the zipper allowance and the waist area. So guys, I am done with sewing in my lining, and this is what it looks like right now. You can see how the green skirt is looking puffy because of the hip parts. Yes, that is exactly how yours is going to be. This is how it looks like on the back side. And right now this skirt is ready to be attached to the top of the dress. So you see the side I talked about sewing in on the waistline. Yes, this is done usually if you are attaching an inbuilt top to your skirt. That is what you usually do when you are attaching an inbuilt top to your skirt. You have to sew or cover up that part of your waistline. So I'm going to insert my inbuilt top to my skirt, and you see the final look of everything. So you see how it looks like being covered up. I'm going to turn this over to the wrong side so you can see this very well. Now you see how it looks like on the wrong side of the skirt. So automatically this is like a two-in-one skirt. One skirt is to cover up the hip parts, which stops at the knee line, and the other is your main skirt. So you can see how it looks like when I flip this over to the other side. So you can see what I am doing right here. I'm just trying to show you guys to have like a clear look of exactly what I am doing. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I also hope you understand and like this very technique I just showed to you right now. I am just turning every side of this skirt for you to see this very well, so it will help you when you are going to do yours. It will help you understand how yours is supposed to be sitting in your skirt. So I'll turn this in for you to see. This is the side, the lining that is covering the hip pad, and this side is the back side. So you see how the back side looks like, how the zipper area is being turned in up to the knee line, and for the waistline you see how the waist area is being covered, the center back of the skirt, you see how I covered it. So for this zipper I'm going to trim it off after this, and for this rough ends I'm going to weave or serge, however you understand that. I'm going to weave or serge this rough ends after making this dress. So I'm going to do all the ends that are rough after this. As you can see, the back side is well covered. Let me zip this up. Okay, the back side is well covered, you can see. And please, when sewing your lining to your skirt, please be very careful with the zipper so you do not sew into the zipper and spoil your zipper. After that, then trim off if you used a long zipper. You can also see the sides of the skirt well covered, that is the side seam. Please, when attaching your lining to your skirt, follow this side seam line. Make sure the side seam of the main skirt and the side seam of the lining aligns with each other. You can see what I did right here. So make sure of that so that your hip pads will not be shifting to one side of your body. Okay. So now that I am done showing you guys all the tips and techniques of attaching your hip and butt pad in this other way, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. And please, if you do and this is your first time on this channel, please do not forget to subscribe to my channel. If you'd love to watch more of my tutorials as I post, please click on the notification bell so you always be notified whenever I post new tutorial videos. Please do not forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and also please click on the share button and share the link to those who you think might be interested in learning this very technique, or to those who you think this tutorial might be of great help to. Yeah, honestly guys, if you ask me, what I really love about this technique is how the skirts are being separated from each other. How the lining and the main skirts are being separated is one beautiful thing I like about it. I hope you like the same thing, or if there's something else you like about it and you feel like talking about it, please drop it on the comment section and we will talk about it. Another thing you need to make sure of is that your lining should end at your knee line. This is actually the upper knee line, so it doesn't interfere with your leg or your knee movement. Yeah, so it doesn't interfere with your movement. That is why you should stop the lining at your knee line. This dress is going to be attached to a corset top, and if you do not know how to draft, cut, or sew a corset top, I have it on my channel. Please go into the channel, then search how to cut and sew a corset top. It's going to pop up for you to watch. So I'm going to stop here for now, and I'll see you guys in my next tutorial. Bye.